Indeed, there is a lot more that they will need to do. And you're also part of that privileged league of owners of the structures of the media.
Okay.
I do not know at what level that you are personally involved. And I'm saying that if you're not yet that involved, you ought to. Yes, as I said, the survivor in the short term is important. But what is even more imperative is thinking of what will happen to the media in this decade before we get to 2030. And I'm saying that this COVID-19 and the recession that we are hopefully trying to avoid, as the CBN governor said in the news yesterday, is to use this opportunity to come out with a roadmap policy. And it will involve the MPAN, BON, RATAU, NUJ, NGE, everybody, including the social media, handlers, to say that let us look at ways for which our survival will be guaranteed even beyond the immediate COVID-19 and the recession. And therefore, let us plan in the interim for the next 10 years. City people does not need to engage. I mean, I was reading what my brother and friend, Tokwe Kata, wrote on Facebook the other time, Ajayi. So,
okay.
And he made a beautiful argument that, some of us have always, made, that news organizations like your own, like my own, do not necessarily have to be engaged in printing and distribution. Let us contract it out, which is, if you look at what our brothers in the broadcasting sector are doing, by using the technology of a DSTV or the other, smaller ones, Star Times and co. They don't need to invest in mast and transmitters, etc. What they do is that they just get their office, equip their staff, go after the news, and then send the news to DSTV or Star Times, or Go TV to disseminate. A corollary to that in our own sector of print is to say that let us concentrate, if all the wherewithal will be there, on just making sure that we get authentic, interesting, good news that the consumer is interested, in reading, in seeing. And let us leave the business of printing and for those who still want to stay with printing, no matter how bad, you still have a few. And maybe within the next 10 years that I spoke about, maybe who says that we cannot have the sort of a thing that we have in the banking sector, consolidation in the media sector? Why do we need 10 or 12 or 15 national newspapers? Maybe we need only 5. Maybe it's only 3 or 4 that are viable at the moment. Why then have them scattered all over the country when they can barely survive? So I'm saying that for those who will still choose to stay in the business of print media, let others who are more knowledgeable, who have investment and understanding of how distribution, logistics, and printing work, as you have it in Europe and Asia and some of America, to deal with that and take advantage of the revival of the train that is coming and invest in distribution vans like the late Chief M. Abiola once proposed, to say that by 4:30 a.m. from Kakawa or from Maryland or wherever, I'm picking all the 6 major titles. The printer understands that by 4:30 it needs to be there, and then the distribution company needs to get there. What you sell is totally now dependent on the quality of news that you are putting out and the brand, image of your own paper. But of course, that there is no more excuses about the fact that, it's because we didn't get to Ibadan, on time, or we didn't get to Akure. No, you will get there. You will have quality printing, but it's the quality of news, which is your area of specialization, that will now determine your survival. But again, the most important thing first is to borrow from the wisdom of President Barack Obama in 2008 to say that, yes, we can say that there will be about a quarter of the jobs that will be lost, but we cannot, on account of a pandemic, allow the structured media to disintegrate, because that will call for anarchy, that will call for the social media that does not yet have control and regulation and authenticity as at this time to take over news dissemination, which we cannot afford.
But Funke Osai Brown was also asking a question now that, do you think that the current media ownership structure will encourage consolidation in the media?
If the argument is persuasive enough, I think that it can be considered. Part of the reason why there will be a few, dissension, there will be a few people who will be reluctant. But again, if you are looking at your survivor, not just for this year or next year, okay, or if you are looking at what will happen by 2030, and which means therefore that whoever is taking the decision now as the MD or the chairman might not likely be the person that will be there by 2025 or 2030. So you won't just be taking a decision because you want to benefit from being an MD who supervises or who superintends over the printing of the paper, over the distribution of the paper, or over the how the news is sourced. No, I think the biggest title that a professional should be proud of in the newsroom, if you are print, is to be the editor-in-chief. The MD is a business concern. Yeah. And what is the business of the MD at the time that if your best was selling 5 copies 10 years ago, and now you are barely doing 2 or 1.5? What is the big deal about being an MD at that point? Contract it out. But I'm saying that such decisions should not be influenced by personal gains or ego, but to look at the survival of the industry. And I believe that such decisions will be taken across, at the board level. MQ Abiola once proposed it. He said, let us come together so that Concord will not be flogging his distribution vans, while Daily Times is flogging his own, Punch is flogging his own. Let's agree on what time to get to Kakawa or wherever they will pick up from. And then let one van, take us to wherever. Okay, these days you can say that newspapers have managed to bypass that by printing in Maiduguri, printing in Kano, printing in Abuja. But even at that, how many are they selling? If the best and the biggest of the banks, let alone of the media industry, is talking just because of COVID or 4 months, is talking of downsizing, it simply means that they will be badly hit and that there is a case for the sort of consolidation that happened in the banking industry. Whether we like it or not, market forces might lead us to that inevitable juncture, but then it is important to start thinking about it. And as I said earlier, if an opportunity presents itself for a policy document to be presented by stakeholders as a result of post-COVID survival, we should not limit our demands to just the 6 months and 1 year or 2 years of survival. Let us plan ahead for the entire decade. And there are a number of things that need to come in there. Take advantage of the rail services, take advantage of online and digital revolution. But in doing that, ensure, as America is doing, that you do not leave that digital space to murderers, to blackmailers, to extortionists, so that those who are trained and have invested heavily in the business of media will also be the dominant players in that space, because the news that they will put out, whether from broadcast, the media or print or radio, will be authentic and will not be injurious. Take you know, for example, I mean, we always talk about, you know, oh, a lot of blackmailers, a lot of extortionists are there. But what about what I call the plague of faceless journalism, which is so rampant? One blogger opens 2, 3, 4, or 5 blogs, no address, no name of anybody to contact, no contact, no ideology as to what the newspaper or the blog, you know, represents. And the only thing is that he or she does a story just to attack Mr. Sheikh, or just to attack Steve Ayoorinde, or just to attack Minister Lai Mohammed, or just to attack banker A, B, or C. And it will be the one using different phones and numbers to forward same stories. And once, you know how bankers work, once they see that, the first interest is that we don't want bad news for our thing. But he's a faceless journalist. So faceless journalism is one of the plagues that we need to deal with as we are dealing with misinformation and the plague of fake news. So until we say, no, you can't function. I mean, it's like having a quack of a doctor giving you injection. Who is the source? What is the source of this forwarded story? And I'm not saying forwarded message. You know, you may not know the source of a forwarded message because it doesn't carry byline, it's not on the platform. But I'm saying platforms that are mounted, that are there, you know, on Google, that are there on Blogspot, that are there everywhere, but they are faceless. You can't trace anybody. Those sort of blogs and platforms, etc., you know, pose a lot of danger for the survival of our profession and for the sanctity of our society. So in planning for the media to say that if you do not want anarchy, and we are saying that help us, assist us in surviving not just this COVID-19, but in being relevant in the next 10 years, whether we are publishing a newspaper in hard copy or we are publishing it online. It is important for those who are consuming the news to be able to trace whoever is behind a particular news. If it is Mr. Sheikh or Lome Yuakipelo or Mr. Kule Bakari that is behind a certain publication, you may disagree with it. And if you need to disagree or even take it beyond disagreeing and you want to sue, there must be somebody responsible. You can't just have Alpha and Omega blogspot dot whatever, and you cannot trace that person who is making a claim, an outlandish claim about anybody, about a corporate entity. So part of the survivor that I'm talking about for the next decade, because this will be a crucial year and therefore a crucial decade for our survivor to be guaranteed, it ought to go beyond palliatives that will stop by December or stop by next year. And it will involve everybody coming together and also insisting to those who are supposed to be speaking with us as friends and partners on the side of government to say that, yes, for example, it is not just the creative industries. As important as that sector is, let us also speak directly, one-on-one too, to those who are the stakeholders in the information and media management sector, so that, like Obama reasoned in 2008, we won't have to leave our doors open to more readers who, in the name of decentralized news medium, everybody is citizen journalism, and begin to ruin our lives and ruin our profession.
So you actually think that the print will survive, and that it will survive the onslaught coming from the social media in terms of challenge?
It will be badly hit, as it's been badly hit already, but it won't be wiped out completely. The same way that radio and TV didn't kill print, I do not think online and COVID will kill print. But print will stagger, it will stutter, it will struggle, but it will survive. And part of the survivor will be to ensure that it does a lot more than reporting yesterday's news. And even in reporting yesterday's news, it gets to where it needs to get to in good time. The market share will shrink, but in other ecosystems, and I don't have to use Europe and America as examples alone, because we tend to think that, okay, maybe because they are a lot more civilized or more organized than us. I use Asia, I use India, I use Korea, I use Japan and China, where newspapers and magazines are still selling in their millions. Incidentally, where on the average, more people are actually more digitally conscious than even an average, the average in America. And so it is not about education or lack of it that is saying that people will not buy what you are selling. There are reasons why people will buy it beyond yesterday's news. So I'm saying that if you reduce the stress of you having to be your printer and your distributor, and you align those who have expertise in those areas to take advantage of the real revolution that this government has provided, it is likely that we do a lot better than we're doing. But survivor, we will and we must, even if it means only 3 to 4 or 5 truly national newspapers. And we can count them. It's just that it will be disingenuous of us, to start mentioning names. We can count them. We know by their, by the things that they stand for, by their management style, by their fame and popularity, that some are doing a lot better than the other. We should be interested in their survival beyond the immediate. That's what I'm saying. I mean, we used to say in film that long live welcome video, something like that. Film is dead, long live the video. Yes, video revolution came, but film hasn't died. Film has accommodated video, so you find video in film and vice versa. So I'm saying that city people like The Nation or The Sun should be able to have the same sort of visibility as you're doing at the moment online. And that if you choose to go with the print edition, whether weekly, whether periodically, whether yearly or whatever, the reason why you do that should be because you know that those who have expertise and who have been encouraged to invest in that sector, printing and distribution, can get it done for you. And I'm saying that this is an opportunity for us to discuss it clearly so that we can stay afloat, we can have our feet firmly planted on the ground, but it will not be a commerce affair anymore. It will not be a mushrooming situation of saying, oh, I'm a publisher of so, and so. I mean, you can see what is happening. A lot of people have diversified. Your good self, you've diversified, different things, different revenue, streams that you are engaging in. But your core business is news. Whether you are doing that through your weekly publications or the specialized publications, or the fact that you are now fully taking advantage of the digital channel, which is the key thing now. I'm saying that we shouldn't allow people like your good selves to be harangued out of the print industry just because we think that America is saying, oh, it might not survive. I'm saying that it is surviving one way or the other in Europe, and more importantly, in Asia. And with the 200 million Nigerians, about close to half of who are educated and online. If you're online, you are reading something or you are watching video, and news can be packaged as print and video. So if you have 87, 97, or almost 100 million Nigerians online, the biggest, anywhere in the black world and in Africa, there is an opportunity there to ensure that the business of news survives. And it can survive in print too, the same way that television and radio are surviving still as traditional institutions while they are still exploring opportunities on the digital space. That's my argument, sir.